and you can either put, and I guess what we're asking you to is to use these particular roles, whichever role is as close to you as possible, because we are going to have an activity where we need you in role-alike groups. So take the moment to actually rename yourself. Right? And if you are needing some help, let me see if we can help you. You know, I can't rename you. Hover over. Judd, I think there's going to be about 25 of us. So there's a few folks who didn't make it over yet.
Okay.
But yes, I'm starting to see people rename, which is helpful.
Great. Thank you all. Yes.
Thank you.
And I just made you co-host.
Are we supposed to exit the other meeting?
Yes, you should exit the other meeting.
Thank you, because I can. Sandy, are you okay? I'm good. I'm good.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Right. I think we got almost everyone in. I think we have almost everyone in. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction of our Bank Street team. And if folks are still struggling or need some additional support, if you go to the chat and just write in the chat, look, I need help. Maybe we can help you out a little bit. All right. We are again asking you to use the roles that we have listed. I know some of you, maybe your role might not be listed. Okay, we'll see how it works out.
Sam?
Sandy, you good?
Yes, I'm in the room. I just want Sam to know that I left the other room and there's an echo.
I think it's an echo because she has both computers open and we can hear her sound. So either she'll have to mute herself.
Sorry, I'm not hearing you clearly.
Genevieve, it's possible that there's an echo because Samantha has two laptops open.
Okay, I'm hearing you clearly now.
You hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Once you leave that room, maybe just make sure that's fully shut down.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get back into that room. I'm only seeing your screen. I'm afraid to leave because it took a while to launch your to get into the Zoom meeting. So I'm not seeing to minimize it. So maybe let me see. To minimize it so that I can close off the meeting
picture. Are you on a PC or a Mac?
PC.
Samantha just joined this room, so maybe
she'll close that room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Samantha, you're in, right?
Yep, I'm here.
Genevieve is having some problems.
Well, I'm in the room, but I know that I can't get back to close off to log off the other meeting.
Don't worry, I expelled everybody out of the other room, so everybody was evicted.
All right, thank you.
We're all gone. No worries. Okay, we'll get started.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, thank you all for the tech patience. We have to have some flexibility with ourselves these days. My name is Davia Franklin, and I'm Senior Director of Partnerships here at the Bank Street Education Center. And many faces are familiar faces and many faces are new. We're glad to be here with you. I also have Rachel Bello. Rachel, say good morning. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. I can't tell you how lovely it is to see these familiar faces. And I was just saying, it's so nice to be quote unquote back in Newark, even though apparently I'm still in my bedroom, but I really feel the Newark vibe today. And I've had the pleasure of working with Davia on some of this work 2 years ago, and it's some of my favorite work that we've done. So thank you for having us here.
Yes. And then our other team member is Jared, and he will be our like angel because he is our tech support and our project support and our everything support. So Jared, you want to say hello real quick?
Sure. Good morning. Yes. Hi, I'm Jared. If you need a little bit of help with anything, feel free to chat me privately. And I will do my best to assist while we navigate through this.
Yes. And I know that Newark is fans of social media, and I see your Instagram is always live. I'm always checking it. So we did put a hashtag out there today. If you're a Twitter person and you wanted to hashtag out something that we are talking about or something that you feel is useful for the field to know, we have at Bank Street EDU, and then the hashtag is redefining early childhood, because that is what we are continuously doing with this work. Jared, can you move for me? Samantha really kind of set this up, so I really don't have to spend much time going over it. I don't even know why we put these parts in the slide, because Samantha always takes care of it. But it's here just for you to know that our overall goal for this transition committee, and it's really exciting to be at this place, is that we look at that K-3 SAVS tool and really determine how we use that tool to do a self-assessment, to see where we are, to see what we've been working on. A lot of the work that you all have been engaged in has been along the path of the Clarity 2020. And so we'll see elements of that. And so that we can continue to define what early childhood is and how do we think about that age 3 to grade 3 span, and then begin to align our professional development and make some recommendations for district leaders, teachers, and teacher teams. So that is the work that we will be doing. So as you can see, we have a number of working group meetings, right? For us to actually do this work, we are going to need to have some monthly touch points. And so we will have touch points in January. Also in February, we'll begin to start taking all of the data that you all share with us and begin to start to work on writing up the recommendations. There'll be a handful of you a part of that. Different teams will work on different aspects of it. And so we have 4 physical working groups, so to speak, where we are coming together. And then we'll have 3 additional sessions. Those 2 sessions really focusing in on the recommendations and the write-up, really trying to get a sense of how we present what we want when we get to the end. And we'll have a recommendation sharing, and that would be our last session in May. So it will take us some time, but by the time we get to May, we'll be ready with some really clear directives based on all of the good work that we're going to do together. Okay. Any questions about that? No. Dokes. This is just the working series. I want you to be aware that this group is really doing the assessing of the current state of pre-K to grade 3 using the New Jersey Doc SAVS. And we are also doing some work with the school leaders. We have some professional learning sessions. We just thought it was important that you knew that. And it's possible that some of the artifacts that are happening in the school leader series could be used in our SAVS world. And so as we're thinking about where we're going and where we're at, we might be able to use some of those artifacts. And then there's also a coaching strand that's happening. So we just want you to be aware that Samantha and the Office of Early Childhood are really putting in the structures, trying to begin to put in the structures to align the work so that we can really see the vision and the recommendations in Clarity 2020 come to life. So we know that many of you know each other, but you may not get to work with each other all the time, may not even get to see each other, especially for the teachers who are really with the children all the time. And so what we're going to have you do, and just for a few minutes, just for about 10 minutes or so, and a real 10 minutes, not our normal 10 minutes, right? We're going to ask you to get in small groups. And I think Jared will, you can do, I don't know, groups of 5 if you want. Yeah. And while you're in the room, just, a quick introduction of yourselves, and then choose one of these 2 questions to kind of speak to, what's something you're doing for self-care? Many of you are, having to take deep breaths, take long walks, whatever you're doing for your self-care, or what's on top for you that's really kind of not getting in the way, but just on your mind so that you can clear it so that we can be present together, right? So that's all we're going to be doing for about 10 minutes or so. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. I know it's never enough time. So I know that's always the complaint we get. We're getting started. We understand. And we will have opportunities to continue to have some informal and formal community building. The one thing I wanted to just share quickly is that this session is being recorded, just so that it's really just being recorded for our own use. And if there are other folks who missed the session and we wanted to share with them, we could have this running record. So just to make sure everyone is aware that that is what is happening, okay? All right, Jared, can you move to the next slide for me? So our session goals are pretty much similar to our overall goals for our work for all of the sessions. And so these goals won't change that much throughout our time together. Again, we are going to look at a concept called learning at every layer of the system. And we're going to do that as a group. And we're also going to reference some of the prior instructional core vision work that we did with this, with the previous team, which was called the ECLT, Early Childhood Leadership Team. And that helped us to kind of begin to activate and start to look at the district in a more critical way. And then we're going to have an opportunity to familiarize ourselves with the SAVS tool. We're going to actually practice doing one of the ratings together as a team, and so that we can norm a little bit. And so that's our day, pretty much, okay? So I want you all to take a minute, and I want you to read this to yourself. This is our theory of action that we are using to kind of help guide what this work is. And it's kind of like an if-then statement. But if we do this assessment of the current state of the district's age 3 to grade 3 systems and structure, by determining the areas of critical need and improvement, and beginning to name the learning opportunities that are needed, not only for teachers, but for school leaders and for district, like everyone's going to be learning something, then we can begin to create a set of coherent recommendations to support the implementation of these learning opportunities for the upcoming year. And so this is our theory of action. This is what we're saying we are going to engage ourselves in. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, next slide for me, Jared. We always have norms. You know, if we weren't face-to-face, we'd have a handful of norms that help us to kind of move through. We have some digital working group norms. All of them are really pretty self-explanatory. It's hard to talk to a screen and not see faces. So I really do ask to see your face, but I do understand that you may have kids in the back. I have my 16-year-old at the table playing school at this moment, you know, you have dogs. So I get that you may have to turn off the video functionality. I get that. If you are not speaking, please put yourself on mute. If you have any questions, use the chat as a way to not only have questions, but also to offer comments. We try to check the chat as we go through. And then we ask that you try to be fully engaged. You know, we get a little bit of time together And I know there's so much pulling on your time. And so just being open and being present for the time that we have is really important to us. So I just hope that these will work. If there are any other working group norms that we need, and actually one that I would add is having the materials that we send to you open and available. We tend to actually use stuff to work with. And so I know you just got that that link this morning from Samantha, but normally we'll try to send it a day or two before so that you can, I don't know, you might have to print it out, or you might at least need to have it open so that you don't have to come out of the Zoom to go to the, you know, the drive. So that's the only other working group norm that I would put on there. Okay. All right, Jared. So here is a frame that many of you may know, and many of you may not be familiar with. And so I'm actually going to ask, not to put any of my folks on the spot, but I know there's a handful of people in this room who actually know a little bit about this instructional core. And so if I could ask you all to take a risk and share with the broader team how we use this, so what this instructional core is about. Come on.
All right, I'm going to take a chance here.
Thank you. Who's that taking a chance? Wait, who's that taking a chance? I need to see.
Oh, Jennifer.
Jennifer, hi.
So the task, right? Well, a triangle is the strongest force. So you need to have the teacher, the content, and the student. Like the old frame is like the teacher is the giver of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
We evolved from that, right? We know that while we don't throw away everything from the past, we know that that model doesn't work. So in the middle is the task, but it's a reciprocal. So the triangle, meaning that each part is equal, what the teacher's doing, the student, and the content. And I don't know, I can't, like something like that.
Absolutely. Listen, absolutely, Jennifer. Thank you for taking that risk. And you're absolutely right that there used to be, we always focus either on the teacher or we always focus in on the content. But I want you to see it as each of the corner like represents one piece, but the arrows in between mean that there's an interaction, right? And so that one piece, right? So if you looked at the teacher corner, it's like, what are the teachers doing, right? And then the student corner is, what are the students doing? And then the content corner would be like, what is the content that they are engaged in? And really, it's so important to understand the interactions between what's happening with what the teacher is doing is having an impact on what the student is doing. And it's also what the content is that the teacher is putting in front of them. And then there's something in the middle, which is what's actually happening, right? All the little nuances of what's happening, meaning like, do I put them in a small group? That's a teacher decision, right? And when I do that, it impacts what's happening. So all of the nuanced pieces. And there were times when we used to say, well, you know what? We're just going to change the curriculum because it's the curriculum that's not working, right? So you change the curriculum, but the teacher's still doing the same thing and the students are still engaging in the same way. And you go, well, hell, that didn't work. We changed the curriculum, but something didn't happen, right? And so it's the interplay. And I think that's really important. It's the interplay and the kind of thinking that is required by the teacher to think about what's needed for the student.
Can I say one other thing?
Sure.
I'm sorry. I'm just like thinking too, because like curriculum, you know, it's best practices. And that's why I'm so thrilled to be part of this, because it doesn't matter what the curriculum is, but if we have best practices in place, those should be there for 50 years. It doesn't matter the curriculum, because a best practice is a best practice. Absolutely. And I'll shut up now, but I'm very excited to be part of this work because I strongly believe in best practices and early childhood. So.
Absolutely. And you are right.
Do you mind if I have one thing on?
Please. I'm waiting for somebody else to add on.
Sure. When I think about the instructional core, to me, it sort of redefines the whole idea of curriculum. The curriculum is not this thing that somebody writes down and hands to you and says, "Here, teacher, deliver this." The curriculum is actually that triangle. The curriculum is actually the interaction between the content, the teacher who then interprets it and thinks about what our children need based on this thing that's written down and handed it to them. It's then in practice with the teacher and the student, and then it evolves from there based on what the students are needing. So the whole idea of curriculum to me is that triangle, not that thing that's handed over.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Sandy. And I think that's the most important piece, is that it is the interplay, and it is everything that's asked and everything that's put in front of children, and also how the children engage in what they're doing, right? So it's all of it coming together. And so, you know, when you look at the triangle, what's prominent are the corners, but to me, it's the arrows that speak to the corners, right? It's the all the in between that has to be mindful. And we were fortunate enough a few years ago to work as a team and to begin to build an early childhood vision that took in mind best practices and took in mind what would be needed, like what could teachers be doing and how would students respond if teachers were doing it in a certain way, and what would the content look like. So we have that a handful of these folks have used to kind of help to create, and we can use that also as an artifact as we look forward to utilizing the SAVs to help us say, well, where are we at now? And so it's the first way for us to kind of hone in on what are we seeing, right? And so it's important for you to be familiar with that, because you will see this instructional core and we'll make references to it along the way. Okay.
I also wanted to interject that based on the work that we did before, and this is Marisol, based on the work that we did before, we also talked about the fact that in order to improve student outcomes and learning, right, the leverage components are the ones that are represented in this triangle, right? So if we increase teachers' knowledge and skill level, right, of instructional practices, of best practices that were noted, but that would move the needle. But then we also have to address and increase, right, the complexity or the rigor of the content that we're presenting to students. And then if we do those two things, we can't leave students out. So we have to be able to say, okay, how do I further engage the students so that they're engaged in deep work? So when we take a look at these triangle and we look to increase the capacity or the work that these three groups do, then we really impact change on a much larger scale within the system.
100%. And this really is all about instituting instructional improvement at the highest level, right? And for us to do that, there has to be an awareness that we all have to be aware that this is what's at the core of the work, right? Along with what we are doing and the interactions that we're having with everything, right? So it's teacher knowledge and it's also student experience collectively coming together, right? And so Marisol, you said it so well. All of the pieces kind of add up, and we have to take them in tandem to really kind of move. And this is about instructional improvement, all of this work. Okay. So we will have time to kind of dig into this along the way. Jared, can you go to the next slide for me? I have y'all sitting in the middle. Let me move you over. This slide, you were sent a handout, and you will need to use this handout because the the slide might be a little bit too small. It's too small for me to see. So I'm actually gonna come out of the Zoom for a minute, Jared, for myself. You stay, but I just need to be able to see the doc a little bit clearer. Put my glasses on.
And in the chat, there's the link to the folder a little bit above, as well as this link to the specific handout.
Right. So while you all are looking at, and I have to open it a little bit bigger, my eyes are being on the screen. I want you to start, first of all, I just want you to take a look at it and see what's familiar. Again, if you were with us a few years ago, you might remember this document. The idea that you are learning that there is learning happening at every layer of the system. You will have time to really dig in, but I just want to just give you some orientation to it. If you look at the classroom level, that's the one we were just talking about. That's the one we were just referencing. Right, that classroom level where you see teachers, students, and content, and then the arrows on the outside, right? That's the way you're used to seeing it, right? And so if we were thinking about each of the levels or each of the folks who are in the room, the learning that's happening or the support for the learning that's happening shows up in our instructional core. So if you look at the green one, you'll see that, oh wait, this one's a little bit different. The principal's on the outside and the teacher is where the student is, and then there's content. And then if you move to the left, to the gray, you see another little bit of a change, right? The principal supports are outside, and then the principals are also getting some learning, and then there's content. And then at the district level, you see it again, right? So you can see that every layer of this system, there's supports that's being built in. And there's learning that's happening at each layer of that system. Okay.
And there's teamwork. Can I?
Absolutely.
Which I think is like one of the most important things, collaboration, which I think is something that we need to work on as a district. Because it's like everybody can grow together, you know? And I think that getting rid of that mentality that like, oh, I got to do it, I got to be highly effective, or my class, you know, I get like that too. It's my class, but not really. It's a class with kids. My goal is for all the kids to do well, you know? And I think that one of the best places I ever worked at, and I'll shut up after this, is we shared everything. And it was early on when I first started teaching. I got a job like right out of college in a Catholic school because I did not start teaching in an education program. I did early childhood and was a daycare worker. And then I got a job. And in this school, we planned everything together. It was everything. One person did math, one person, it was everything. And that's one thing in New York City. It was, you know, hard. You have that competitive, you know, people are not, it depends on the school, I guess, but I have noticed it in Newark too. And I'm in a wonderful school. I love my school, but I think it's something that always needs to be said, that like we're as a team, we all have something to teach. We all have something to learn. You know, we're growing together. And that's why like these structures, it's not that one person is in charge. We all fit the puzzle together and we're all supporting, you know. Sorry, I'm very excited.
Jennifer, don't be sorry. Listen, we're very excited. Look, Samantha's like, yes, I've been waiting. You don't even know how we have been like waiting for this team and waiting for this moment to come together to say, let's just unpack this together. Let's work this together and let's look together. And I think you said something that's really important, is that we're all learning and teaching. We're all learning and teaching. And if nothing else, understand that there's learning happening at every layer of this system. When you look at the green, you know, this the green area, it's like, wow, okay. The principal becomes the facilitator of the learning and the teachers are learning at that point. But that's okay, because at the grade level, the principal support team becomes the facilitators of the learning, and then the principals become the ones who learn, right? And so that's the point of this, is that we all have something. Even in the orange, the district folks, they then become the layer that is supporting. They become the facilitators of the learning, and the principal support team is learning something. And the content is changing based on the needs, but it's also aligned to the priorities, right? It's aligned to the goals. So we all need to be either facilitating the learning or being the learner, right? That's what this is all about. Like, at some point, we are all learning or facilitating learning, so that the instructional improvement is truly happening in a coherent fashion, right? And we're going to use the SAVs as a way to kind of unpack and say, well, are we doing something well? Of course we are. Are we doing something that needs more support? Of course there is, right? So it's really exciting to see this.
And I just want to add to that, that this whole committee and the work of this committee is exactly that, teaching and learning. We're learning from every layer, and then we're teaching each other, right? And that's what's going to have the most impact on the work that we do. And ultimately, what our department and our office wants to ensure is that the supports that we are putting in place make sense for the needs of the district. Right? Because we have the work of the Office of Teaching and Learning and the instructional pieces, but all of the other systems that are running and turning, it needs to make sense for the work of the district. And that's where we can support as an office as well. So you're speaking up and speaking out and being that voice specifically for your SLT is extremely important. So please continue to do so. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. And everybody on this call, like that, you are positioned to be this K-3 transition team for a reason, partly because of what you bring, your knowledge base, your empathy, your willingness to be the learner and the teacher. That's what we need here, right? That's the only way we move this work. So,
and I just want to say pre-K to grade 3. We need to make sure we include that pre-K.
Pre-K, of course. So you're going to have about maybe 10 minutes or so. You're going to go into rooms. Now, these are roller-like rooms, okay? So it'll be a little bit different. The reason you're going into the roller-like is because I want you to really spend time with the section that is yours. If you're blue, if you're green, if you're gray, if you're orange. And I know that many of you might say, well, I'm not really sure. I don't really support principals. I support a whole network. I'm going to let you define that for yourself, right? In many districts, orange and gray are melded together. That's the truth. They kind of work together. They flow in and out. Sometimes folks who are coaches or who are supervisors, they live between like green and blue, right? They live in between that space, right? And so when you go into your space, I would say, look at who you are defined as, or who you're closely assigned, like defining yourself as, but also check out who's to the left of you and who's to the right of you, right? First, start with yourself. We're going to need someone to be the recorder for that group, and we're going to need someone who's going to share out for the group, because I will want to hear from each of the layers. It does make a difference, okay? The systems are not so evenly divided perfectly. So you may be like, I think I'm gray, but sometimes I'm orange. It's fine. It's fine. You self-define and you come up with your rationale around why you chose what you chose. I think that's fine. Jared is going to be placing you all. You're going to see the breakout room link. I'm going to visit each room. But I want you all to kind of dig in. First and foremost, spend time reading that section by yourself. Don't start talking first. Try to make sense of those bullets first. So take 3 to 5 minutes on your own. And then as a group, go ahead and get started. Folks are still coming back. But if there are any recorders from rooms, if you could go into the chat, and if the recorders could type in the school group or the role that you are, and then some notes, into the actual chat so that everyone from the different rooms can see what you all talked about. I think that would be really important. So the recorders from each of the room, if you could go ahead and start inputting some of just a summary into the chat, that'd be helpful for everyone. Okay. And then can I ask my teacher group, whoever was sharing out, if you could just share out with the lot, like unmute yourself and then kind of share a few things that your group talked about. And we're going to hear each group, but I'm going to keep y'all to a minute, less than a minute.
Okay, I'll do this fast. The teacher group, there were a few just key phrases or words that stuck out. One was ambitious, and thinking about specifically the integrated units with the ELA and the social studies, and how those are really ambitious undertakings for teachers because they have such rich vocabulary and they're so rich in thought, as one teacher shared, that it takes a lot for the teachers to sort of unpack that and figure out how that is going to be presented to students in a way that they will understand. And another word that came up in our group was collaborating, and the idea of working with the teachers in your grade level, in your school, with your coaches, searching for new resources for instruction, trying things, visiting classrooms, visiting other schools and classrooms to see what teachers are doing in those places as well. And then in the idea of right now, the virtual world that we're living in, the idea of also this feeling of isolation, and how do we kind of work through that to make sure that we're giving our students all that they need and all that they require, and especially with the SPED Ed classes. So that was basically what we were thinking of.
Thank you so much. School leaders, I heard you were on fire.
Sorry, I'm on two devices trying to mute and unmute.
It's okay.
So we really talked about, I mean, ultimately at the essence, it's the responsibility of the principal to ensure that a strong vision is created. And, you know, with a team, you can't create a vision alone because then it's memorization as opposed to buy-in. So we talked about how, you know, there's multiple levels of support needed for an initiative to be successful with strong understanding from the top down. So you have your understanding, you create your vision with the team, you get your buy-in, and then ultimately, once you have the buy-in, it's your responsibility to make sure that those teachers feel safe. We also talked about aligning the work to our strategic plan because the strategic plan is a living document. So you're consistently reflecting. So being reflective and making sure that the process is not just linear. It's not going to ever be linear. You have to stop, you have to reflect, you have to refine. So knowing that, you know, that's the responsibility of the principal here. And then there was one piece as far as the students, you know, the goal is for the students to be at the center. So in order to make this process go smoothly, this is the way it's got to go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And then we have our district leader team. Am I missing somebody? No, just district leaders now. Yep.
So our team was very talkative in reference to the district leaders component. So some of the notes we have in terms of the areas of noticings were definitely in terms of adult learning, the important role of adult learning in this whole process, specific on the district level area. How do we make sure that professional development and adult learning is in a systematic way and focus on improvement of the actual system as a whole, whether or not in terms of this is really a linear scale that we're working on, but also making sure that there's a clear criteria for this adult learning that happens throughout the district to make sure that everyone and that there are checks and balances along the way for check-in and accountability. And then we actually reflected on some of the team members have participated in an area called Lift, where things were brought to like coaches and teachers at the same time. And what is the best model for really making sure that everyone is clear on the criteria of adult learning and making sure that teachers
get the best out of it, right? That they are getting what they need to support children in the classroom. So definitely some conversation around that. Some of the wonderings we talked about were, is this kind of a linear, looking at the graphic, is it kind of linear in purpose? Where's the parent support in this piece? Because we all know that that's so important. How about the buy-in, right? From teachers when it kind of comes down to them in this way, and just making sure that PLCs and professional development is really an opportunity, and it needs to be modeled, and maybe that needs to happen on the school level rather than on the district level. Maybe that's a better model, but definitely a lot of great conversation from our team.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Can I just add in one more thing that I in hindsight, I should have said before? One of the things that we talked about was the professional development and just making it super relevant. So really looking at the needs of the teachers, because just like teaching, the PD is not a one size fits all. So when you're looking at the professional development, that's where the reflection piece comes in. So really looking in, gathering data, determining what your school individually needs, because your school, my school, they're going to need different things, and making sure that that's tailored and specific, because there's nothing worse than wasting time in something that you don't need. So valuing the time and the PD is really important.
Absolutely. Valuing the time. Thank you all. Thank you all. And I think everything that you all have touched on is important for us to kind of hold. It's almost like hold this in this container. We're not gonna close, and we're not gonna get answers to everything. But as we go through the process, we'll have an opportunity to go back and maybe take a look at some of the things that we've surfaced. But these things will come out. And we'll have deeper conversations about them as we look at this SAS, because the SAS is really this self-evaluation tool. And so we have to look a little bit more critical at all of the different areas that we are focusing in on. And so this layer, looking at the learning at every layer of the system, once we go through the assessment, we should be able to come back and go, let's take another look at our layer and think about what's the learning that's needed and for everyone, right? And the everyone I would agree with Stacy and say the everyone includes parents too, right? It's the everyone that's impacting the systems and the structures. So we'll have time to do that. And it's really exciting. I know Samantha's like, I can't wait. So we are gonna move to that next slide. Rachel, wait, I know you're back in the room. Is there anything you want to add to this before we move on?
I mean, it's so exciting to be in the room where this kind of thinking is happening. And also, by the way, just hearing I was popped into the school leader group and hearing them be like, hearing you guys be like, well, of course you have a vision for instruction. Like, it's so exciting to hear that it's taken as like a given, as opposed to like, I don't know, I just feel wonderful about that. I did think about, someone brought up the great point of like, how do you know what teachers need to learn? Which I think is actually, it's a deceptively simple question, right? Like the decentralization, or to Lenore's point, the fact that everyone's talking to a screen in their own, like, or people are not always together, or we don't have that sort of same systemic coherence that we had, 9 months ago right now, is a really hard question. And I think just like we push teachers to ask kids as they get older, but even younger kids, about what's challenging about your learning, what do you want to learn, those things, I think it just begs the question, how are we getting, and I think it's so important that we have teachers, school leaders, and district leaders in the room, because I think having that discussion is going to open up a lot of doors around like, what are school leaders seeing in classrooms they visit? What are teachers seeing in terms of the needs of the kids they're trying to meet in this new environment? What are district leaders seeing in terms of the like larger view that they have, the bird's eye view of the whole system? So I'm really excited to see how that plays out, and how those different perspectives come to bear on what ratings we give the different components on the SAVs. And I want to also just say that one view is not necessarily more valued than the other. We need to hear from all layers in order to sort of have a coherent approach to addressing meeting kids' needs and meeting them where they are.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Okay, so we're going to have a moment to actually take a look at the SAS after this. I just want you to understand that this tool that the New Jersey State Ed Department put together is really it's really comprehensive because it covers pretty much everything that a district is engaged in. So the first section of the tool focuses in on program leadership and administration. The second section covers curriculum and instruction, assessment, and professional learning. Like that's the bulk of the work. And then that third section is family and community engagement, right? So it's the whole system that it's asking you to do an assessment on. And so we're starting with where we are currently, right? And what does it look like for us? And so you all will have an opportunity to practice. We're going to practice together. And we're going to take a look at the SAVs. And what we're going to do is we're going to do it in a way that you will be doing it initially, which is by yourself and independently. And then we're going to kind of norm on that. And so our first step would be, Jared, can you go to the second slide for me? Thank you. We've actually sent you a handout. I'm pretty sure that it's in that folder. And what you're going to do is spend some time reading the scoring procedure, right? What is it that they're asking you to do? There's a not yet, there's an in progress, and then there's a fully met, right? And so you're going to have to think about from your own perspective, based on what that question is, do you feel the district is not yet doing that? Is this something that's in progress, or is this fully met? Again, there's no right or wrong answer. It is your perspective based on your experience and how you are living through it, right? And we want you to try to really look at all of the indicators and think about what is the data that you have or you're aware of or you're familiar with. And then based on that, what is the evidence that might be missing and what has already been accomplished, right? And so if you are a person who's a teacher and you say, well, yeah, from my classroom bird's eye view or from my grade view or from my school view, yeah, I have some evidence. I've been working towards this goal, or I know that the district's working towards that goal, but I'm not sure, me pre-K teacher, I'm not sure if it's happening at the K level. I don't really know. I'm not sure if it's happening at first grade, right? So what is missing is what's outside of your purview, so to speak. You might not know. It could be there, but you might not know. Or you need to know something or ask someone. That's fine. You're just kind of going to take some notes. And then what has been accomplished towards something. So if you are, you've been in this district for an amazing amount of years, like a Lenore, who's been here for 39 years, big up to Lenore. That's amazing. Raise the roof on that. She's seen things change over time and she knows what has been accomplished. So even if she doesn't have the evidence, she knows, no, you know what? We started that, we did that. Now it may have happened and therefore there's closure, or maybe it's gone away, right? Lots of good things happen and then kind of go away. Maybe it's been accomplished already and she may have that understanding. And so you're going to spend about 8 minutes or so looking at this handout that we're going to chat with you. And I believe that Jared has already put it in the chat. We're going to ask you to turn your screens off. Don't go anywhere. But really take the time to be by yourself and try to score and get a sense of if you feel this particular one. We're giving you 1C1, which is what you're going to be scoring. And then we're going to come back and then we're going to norm together and kind of hear why and what was the evidence and things like that. All right, everybody clear? Any questions? There's a practice rating handout. You're going to click on it. You're going to go to town. Jared's going to put on some light music. We're going to turn our screens off. Everyone's going to have an opportunity to score on their own. And then we're going to come back. We'll call you back in about 8 minutes or so. And so what I really want us to think about is that I'm sure when you read those different indicators, it brings up all kinds of thoughts for you depending on where you sit and what role you're playing. But really our role right now is about just getting the thinking behind rating and trying to hear what we were thinking out loud for the team. And so we're going to stop sharing for a second. And I'm going to ask you, as an entire team, on the count of 3, to hold up the fingers that relate to the rating that you gave the district. So either you're saying not started, in process, definitely there. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Let me see what we got. All right, let's see. Nice, and I need you to hold it because we're actually going to take a snapshot of each of the pages because it's going to help us with some of our data collection. Okay. Okay. I'm going to scroll over to the next page. Everybody. Okay. 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 Okay.
This is a good piece picture too.
This is a good piece picture. Who am I missing? Darlene, I didn't see you.
Do you want us to also put it in the chat maybe, Davia? Would that also help?
Sure, I'll take it. I'll take it in the chat. I love a picture though. It's always nice to have a picture. It's so rare that we get any good pictures now. All right. Yeah, if you all wouldn't mind, thank you for that. Putting it in the chat, that would be helpful. Thank you, Jared. And so I definitely want to hear, we did have some divergent scores. We did not have any 3s, and that's okay, right? This is a self-assessment. We're growing to that. But we did have some 1s and we did have some 2s. And I'd love if a few folks would be willing to talk about what you were thinking. It's more about what you were thinking, what's your evidence and why you might have chosen what you picked. So if I could have 1 or 2 people to kind of just share, I definitely want to hear from the 1s. Anybody who is a 1 group.
I'll share.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm a 2nd grade teacher at Peshine Avenue School. So I gave us a score of a 1. Now, I know this is supposed to be like the whole for the district, right? Well, yep. I've only been at 1 school, so I can only like go based off my experiences.
Absolutely.
I've only been at Peshine. This is my 9th year at Peshine, so I feel like we're at a 1 with these indicators. I don't feel like we do any of this really. Maybe like 1 or 2 things we probably do, and the rest I don't really see it. It might be happening, but I don't see it in my grade band. I don't know if it happens in middle school or I just don't see it. So that's why I gave it a 1. I feel like we do need to do these things. These things are very important and I don't see it happening.
Okay. Was there any particular indicator that you read that you were like, not that one, we're not there? Or you know what, we do this, but we don't do this. Was there any, like, I'm gonna push you a little bit to go to the indicator and give me some specificity.
So we don't have the kids visit for the next year. They don't find out until the first day of school, basically. We never communicate with the previous teacher or say anything about, we don't know anything about our students really. Our families, I don't feel like they know the expectations from grade level to grade level or anything like that.
That's fair, thank you.
Not enough collaborating. We don't get to collaborate really. Yeah, so.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Is there a pre-K teacher on here who was a 2?
So Davia, remember that was the list, that was the group that was inadvertently left off the invitation. So that's why we're doing a recording for them.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Dang.
No.
I know my pre-K teachers make sure that those families visit, and like I know, certain grades do certain things. So that's just me having a little bit of insight. Okay.
And then again, it could be different from place to place. So would love to hear what they have to say about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I can just add something.
Yeah, of course.
So what I saw is in progress because some of these are happening within certain grade bands, but not across P to 3. For instance, in our school, we do have a kindergarten orientation for parents in June. So all pre-K parents are invited to an orientation where they are, where we talk about what the expectations are, moving from pre-K to K, where they get to visit the classrooms on that day and walk through the school and things like that. So there's a lot of things that happen between pre-K to K that don't necessarily carry through the grade level. So, so it's in progress, I thought.
Okay. So because we're able to hear, I just want to restate a little bit, because we're able to identify that it's happening in a particular grade, but maybe not in other grades, we still want to say that it's in progress because we know that it's happening, right? That's what I hear you saying. That's one way that we can give the rating that we're giving. That's the evidence that we have.
I can add on a little to what Lenore just said.
Yes.
Okay. So I agreed with Lenore. The notes that I took, y'all actually have access to my notes because I'm writing on the same sheet from the breakout session. But I agree, there are a lot of things that are in place from pre-K to K and that are not necessarily in place for other grade levels. Lenore mentioned the meetings for the kindergarten parents, which I also listed. There are also preschools that visit the sites where the children will be attending K, the transition folders. I think we've had a little bit more success in getting more of those over the years, though not this year for obvious reasons. But those do offer a little insight into who these children are and what they need and where they've succeeded. At Abington, we did have teacher leaders across grade level bands meeting to ensure transition. I haven't seen it going on this year. I hope that will continue. There's also evidence that the district addresses their perceived needs. It's not necessarily evident that teachers have a part in identifying those needs in terms of the PD that's delivered. Some classroom visits take place at Abington, but that is more individual teachers deciding they're going to allow the children to visit classrooms for the next grade on their own. It's not systemic. I think it needs to be systemic. Cross grade level groups need to be systemic. The Office of Early Childhood clearly has thought about this for years, and transition strategies have been developed, all those that I mentioned. In Abington, teachers do take part in establishing class lists for the next year, which does, I think, aid in transition for children because those class lists are based on what they know about the children and the children's needs and the children's strengths and the children's personality, instructional setting needs that might be specific for children, and also what they know about the teachers in combination with what they know about the children. So that does happen at Abington. I don't think that's systemic, and that's it.
Okay, and I think that's really important. Our goal is to do this full self-assessment so that we think about what are the systems and the structures that need to be in place district-wide, right? And so it's important to be able to say, oh, I think this is happening here in our building. It's happening across a grade. I'm not sure if it's happening in another school. And so I think at some point, having all of the different SLTs represented and talking about what that means for one SLT versus another and what we need to do to move it towards that is important. Our goal, remember, is really to do this self-assessment and to be as honest as we can and to bring and identify evidence. Maybe someone else is sitting with more evidence than someone else has, right? And so maybe you know something because you sit in a district level and you know something that maybe the teacher level doesn't know. And so that's also important. And that's also information for us. Anyone else? Yes, I just want to ask one question. Sandy, were you a 1 or were you a 2?
I was a 2.
Okay. Okay.
I can't get back to that screen for some reason. Could y'all please mute me? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Ms. Brown, I'd like to add to what Sandy stated about the Office of Early Childhood.
Yes.
Can you hear me? So I do believe that the Office of Early Childhood has a lot of these protocols in place because we try to make sure that transition does happen smoothly and that the preschool teacher and the kindergarten teacher get to meet each other somehow. I mean, this year has been a little difficult. We do school visits. We try to either make sure that the vice principal or someone from the school comes to our schools to represent the kindergarten level and present the curriculum to the parents that are, going into the next level so they could see the difference and what to expect, what's expected of the children and what to expect and their role as a parent in that school and at the kindergarten level. So we do have a lot of these systems in place. I think for the first time this year, we've been trying to communicate and collaborate with other departments within the district. Like this year, I became involved with the special ed department and I collaborate with them in order to help that population of students that I have and help them grow and get them ready for their next step in life, right? When they leave us, because I just have early childhood centers. So that was important for me to be part of that department and part of that and collaborate with that group. I would like to see more of that happening within other departments for early childhood. So that's why I rated it a 2 because there are a lot of systems already that we have in place, but there's some that we may still have to tweak and make things happen in order to make it more successful and then it become a 3.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I add on, Davia?
I need Genevieve. Who's that?
Sorry, I just want to be a devil's advocate and go back to why I selected 1. So when I read through the indicators, I looked to see where I had there was preponderance of evidence. And while yes, I can say for certain indicators. So for example, articulated transitions are planned and implemented between within grades. There is evidence of that between pre-K and K. In the other indicators, there is no evidence, and that's why I feel as though it should be not yet. So it should be not yet. So for example, children visit the next grade before beginning the next school year. The learning goals, enacted curriculum, formative and summative assessment systems, which we've been trying for the longest while to begin to do, to have a coherent assessment system between pre-K, and kindergarten in terms of using goal in kindergarten, which, didn't materialize. That is definitely not evident. A commitment by the district and school leadership to provide professional learning opportunities that enhance the P3 system. We've been talking about having cohesive professional learning between the grades, between pre-K and kindergarten, between the pre-K to 3 grade band, and it hasn't materialized. And that's why I, based on that and all the other indicators that warranted the rating of not yet.
Absolutely, thank you for that. And again, it's perspective, right? And it's the evidence that sits based on where you are. And so we're going to continuously have this from where I sit, it looks this way, from where we sit, and then we'll have to come to
discourse.
Yeah, the discourse is going to be important for us to have, and then really thinking about what it really means. But we wanted to have this moment together, partly so that we could kind of talk it out loud and to kind of hear, oh, this is why that person said yes. Maybe I could have changed my score. So Jared, can you go to the next slide for me?
And as we're moving, I just wanted to point out the concrete examples of bright spots, like where this is happening and where it's not. Like, I find that super compelling to think about Lenore's experience versus, I think, is it Julissa Juliss's experience as a second grade teacher is those are both equally weighted experiences, right? And so documenting them both, and we're going to put together some sort of graphic organizer for us to document our thinking around, like, here's where it is happening and flowering, here's where it's falling down, or here's where it's not systemically implemented. And then think about, so what are the learning opportunities? Why, if we knew how to do this, or if we had the systems and supports in place to do this, it would be happening. So what learning needs to happen in order for that to become more systemic? So I just want to—
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of Rachel, also just thinking about when we are performing specific activities or policy or procedures or protocols, who is informing us that these things need to be happening? Is this something that just happens in your classroom, in your school, or is this a district-wide expectation that all should be doing it? Because ultimately, we want to get to the point where it's a district-wide expectation. So no matter what school you're in, no matter what SOT, this should be happening.
So can I just make a comment, please, based on what Samantha just shared too? So in a former district I used to work in for, about 2 years, when I was reading this, it reminded me of that. And it happened at the district level, where the district put in place a transition week for the entire district. So, you set up your schedule at the building level, but within that week, everyone must have a schedule where you transition students, families, after school closes. So it happened in the classroom. So families were invited to their current teacher's classroom, and they also they had a time where they switched to meet the next teacher that their child will be assigned to. And the teacher facilitated in the classrooms, introduced themselves. They facilitated, what to expect with the curriculum in the next grade level. They, talked about, what the expectations is of the classrooms, everything, the whole gamut. It was a PowerPoint presentation, and the whole district was doing this within that same week, that time frame. It was just very consistent throughout the district. And so there was no element of surprise for families or parents. They knew, oh, I'm going to like this teacher next year for my child. I understand what my child is going to be learning, what standards are going to be addressed, how it's different from this current year that my child is in. And so it gave them something to look for, as well as the child. It gave the child something to look forward to the next year. And I think that also help with retaining their families as well in the following years, and not losing them to charter schools.
Absolutely.
Can I just add one more thing? I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry. That's what this group is actually for. This is the moment where we get to kind of talk and hash it out and say, well, this is what I think, and this is what I think. So it's really helpful to hear all these voices. Thank you.
So just to give a different kind of perspective, in the Office of Early Childhood, we do SAVs every single year for preschool. And when we conduct SAVs, we have to have, for these indicators, we have to have evidence for every indicator. And so when you're scoring, it's all based on the evidence you actually have. So sometimes you're looking at an indicator and you're like, oh yeah, I do that. Oh yeah, we do this. Oh yeah, this is happening. But then when you start to try to actually gather evidence and prove it, you realize you're actually not doing it. So for me, why I gave it a 1 was because when I thought about it, well, I may think it's happening here or there, or maybe a little bit there and there. I don't know if I could actually say I would be able to gather evidence for enough indicators to score even in progress. That's why I scored it at not yet. So in my mind, the way I look at these indicators is much more about the evidence I would have to gather to just give it a score officially. So it's just something to think about, that when we're talking about scoring, to think about what evidence you would need to be able to say that you actually are doing this indicator.
Can I just chime in too?
That last moment to drop that mic on us, because we needed that. I was like, well, is somebody going to say something? Thank you.
Can I chime in real quick on that too?
Absolutely.
So I think that the discrepancies are needed, right? Because the discrepancies describe the need for this work to be done. And a lot of times great work is done in silos. And I think that the goal of this group is to kind of break that from happening. So thinking about all the ideas that we've just heard today and figuring out, how we can expand them and kind of make them, the norm in the district. So I think it's great to hear the different perspectives. I mean, even myself, I gave it a 2, but I already have a couple ideas based on the indicators that I want to make sure that I do so that my school can get to the next level. But ultimately, it's not just about Elliott, it's about the district. So, I think it's great to just be able to listen and participate here.
Thank you for that. And yes, we definitely want to have all of those different voices and different perspectives come into the room. But when you go off by yourselves, and we are going to ask you to do this, I had this slide up. We've kind of done this work in our conversation. And I think that last question was really what I wanted us to kind of linger with a little bit. There will be some challenges around this process, and just kind of think about how we get past the challenges so that we can still press forward. So I just want to leave you with that and not to really dwell on it. But Jared, if you go to the next slide for me, we're going to ask this group to rate all 3 sections of the SAVs, right? And I think what Maura left us with or gave us is something to kind of hold as you are engaging in this, because you will be, again, alone and you will be thinking from your perspective. But I think the idea of, do we have evidence for this? Do I have any evidence, or can I produce any evidence for all of these indicators or for most of these indicators? And it's okay if we have divergent thinking, like that's important, but just at least keep in mind, oh, I think I have evidence for my school, then I'm gonna go ahead and give it a, in progress. But if I can't, then I'm gonna give it a 1. And if I know it's happening for sure throughout and I have evidence to prove that and show it, then I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 3. Because you all are gonna be on your own doing this, the same way we were by ourselves going, thinking about whatever perspective you're coming from. And so all 3 sections, we're gonna send you at the end of this or before the end of this day, a link. We've transferred it to an actual Google form, so it'll be a little bit easier for you. You'll just be kind of clicking through, and we have 3 different forms. So we've broken it into the 3 sections because we weren't sure if you started to rate and then you had to leave and couldn't get it all done in one shot, if the rating would go through. So we wanted to make sure that we get all 3 sections. It will take somewhere about 45 minutes, I would say, if you sat and did it all in one shot. So just know our goal is to have it back by December 11th. I know that might be a bit of a push on your time, but I'm asking you to do that so that we have time to really use the data, kind of construct some things and be ready for you. We want to meet with Samantha first and then be ready for our January conversation. Rachel, anything else? Anything I'm leaving out?
Nothing you're leaving out. I think, so basically our goal with the and I'm sorry if Davia covered this earlier, but I think I get so excited when I hear these rich conversations about concrete examples and also pressures in the district. I think this is, a beautiful time to hear from everybody and talk about this. So our goal is to, in the next session, pick a couple of the areas of the SAVs, because the SAVs goes long, right? So we're going to pick the areas that we think are most deserving of close focus. We're going to break out into small groups, and we're going to really dig into what are our strengths, where are we, where do we want to be, where do we see bright spots, where do we see significant areas for growth, and what learning needs to happen. So I'm sort of previewing the next slide, but I want to just say that the whole point of this, as someone just mentioned, is to let you hear from each other and let your voices drive what the district decides to do next about this. So right. Exactly what you were just doing is what the next session will be devoted to.
Right. And we'll do.
If I can just add to that, Davia, all of you guys received the Word document of the tool. So it might be a good strategy if you want to start there so that you could write the information out and then go to the form, being that, so that you could do it in one setting, because it is, it's things that's going to make you think. And so if you just use the form, you may actually have to step away and go find something and really say, is this a not yet, in progress, or fully met? So you might want to just start off with the Word document that was shared with all of you. And then after you have all your answers, then go to the form.
Mm-hmm. And we are hoping that folks will start to bring the evidence. We want to share the evidence across. Oh, wow, this is what y'all doing. Oh, we're not doing that. Oh, this, this SLT is doing this. Oh, I got a memo that said we're working on this. Like, as you are answering, we also want you to think about, what does the evidence look like that we have? Because the evidence also helps us think about ways in which we try to share across district when we get there. Again, we're going to be in the iteration process for about 4 sessions. So it's not like we're coming to answers immediately, but we're going to start getting ideas along the way. And then we'll start to write and make the recommendations based on what we're noticing. And we have to be smart about leveraging which of the areas can we actually move and push, because there's a lot. There are a lot of areas, right? There are 3 areas, but there are a lot of indicators and a ton
within
of
those areas. Yeah. And so just one more thing, team, understanding that ultimately as a school district, we want to get to fully met, but we know that in some cases we may be in progress for some time. Where we don't want to be is not yet, right? So if we have any indicators or any areas where we're just scoring a not yet, we really need to be digging into those areas to see how do we at least get out of that zone and then start moving towards fully met for all of the other ones. And so, you guys are informing the plans that will move forward, because again, unless this is happening district-wide and the expectation is district-wide, then we're not where we need to be. Okay, even though we know there will be variations at the school level, the bare minimum, the bare expectation should be happening district-wide. And there needs to be policies and procedures and protocols in place to ensure that that is the case. And so this team will be informing the plans to make sure that those things get implemented.
Samantha, there's you may have to resend the SAVS doc to them as a Word. Folks are seeing it as a PDF, and therefore, you can't write in it. So I don't know when you.
Yeah, the email and the initial email that I sent out to everybody, it was in a Word. It was, I didn't send it as a PDF so that you can write. But what I'll do is I'll also upload it to this folder that you have. I'll put it in there, and then you guys, when you just save the link, you guys opened up the link, but make sure you save it, add it to your drive somewhere where you can find it, because then what I'll do is add the resource right to that folder.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. This was a really strong start. We have, Jared, we do have a little bit of a feedback form. It really is just to kind of hear your voices. If there's anything that we need to do and do differently, we take the feedback to heart, and we absolutely will try and make sense of it. Again, by the end of the day, we will send you a communication that just says, thank you for being here. Here are the links. And we expect that you can go for it. Have a wonderful holiday season. Be safe out there, and be careful. And just thank you. We're so glad to just do this work with you all. For anyone who has their phone, if you want to do the feedback form now, it's only like 4 questions. You can take out your phone, go to the camera app, and then lean it on the QR code, and it will open to the feedback, and you can quickly get that done. So we'll leave this up. I know some folks may have to get back to their kids. And Jared also put in the chat a link to the feedback form, so we could go either way. Thank you so much. Rachel, anything?
Just that I am so excited. This is going to be great. I love this work.
Yes.
Thank you all for bringing your whole selves to this.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. This is so exciting. Like, I am thrilled to see this happening, to be doing it. And this was not enough time because I have so many things to say, but I also have a big mouth. So be safe, everybody. Be well. See you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
Have a good day, everyone.
Have a good day. We're going to leave the feedback form.
Awesome session, ladies.
Hi, LaShonda.
Hi. No, I love Bay Street.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, she does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
April,
you.
All right.